Welcome to No Pun Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. Our Look Inside series continues. We are just now hitting the halfway point, and up next, we have the Arizona Cardinals. Lots of big names on this offense, one small quarterback. We hope they are going to be better than next season, but we can't guarantee it. Let's see what we think about them for fantasy and get into it. Welcome into No Pun Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Ryan Weisse, as Joe Zillow is not able to record this evening, but Josh Hudson is with me. Josh, how are you, buddy?
Kyler Murray short jokes will just never get old. I'm telling you.
So I improv that to my wife, and even she started laughing. I was like, oh, that's got to be the intro. I crushed it. So...
Oh man,
I say about
honest to God, I hope he balls out so people just stop talking shit about him. But also at the same time, I kind of enjoy the short jokes.
I say it about a guy who is 1 or 2 inches taller than I am. Like I have any room to talk. So,
well, we're not making the kind of money he's making, so he can take the criticism.
That's damn sure. He can beat us all at Call of Duty as well, guys. As we mentioned, it is our Look Inside series. If you have not saw these episodes, go back. There are plenty of them for you to watch. We are breaking down the fantasy prospects of every team in the NFL this summer. When we look at the Arizona Cardinals, they are bringing back what they had last year. Jonathan Gannon is still the coach. It will be the same offense under Drew Petzing as the offensive coordinator. They were 8-9 last year. It remains to see if they're going to be any better this year. What it doesn't remain to be seen is if you guys are looking to get a little bit of free money and help out one of our sponsors. Josh, I can't find it. There we go. Make sure you use promo code WOFF if you are signing up for Underdog for the first time. They are going to hook you up with a $1,000 up to a $1,000 deposit match. It's not like a full deposit match. I think it's like 50% of your deposit and a free pick on their pick'em game. So very cool sponsorship that we have going on with Underdog. It helps out the Women of Fantasy Football program that we have running, which also, Josh, I think, folks, by the time this episode airs, it's probably too late to sign up. But we do have a tournament this year for people. If you haven't checked it out yet, Josh, let them know a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's our Gods and Goddesses of Fantasy Football tournament. Sign up and get a chance to play against some pretty big names in the industry. Stefania Bell, Lindsey Rhodes, Kendall Valenzuela, Howard Bender, Bob Harris, Laquan Jones, Mauricio Gutierrez from NFL Fantasy in Espanol, Sam Holt.
Yeah.
You know, from right here. She works with Fantasy Life, but also does our Mock Girl Summer with Women of Fantasy and Club Fantasy. So a lot of big names, and you get a chance to play against them, and we'll do a lot of really fun stuff for charity as well. But buy-ins, quote unquote, for the league are donations to our Women of Fantasy Football Galvanized Scholarship Fund. Yeah,
so even if the tournament's closed, just go ahead and donate. Not going to hurt anybody if you're donating to an absolutely great fund. Also, what's not going to hurt you, me, or anybody else is if you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hopefully, by the time you watch this episode, we are over 1,400, and you are now pushing us towards 1,500 subscriptions. We'd very much appreciate it. Hopefully, you're enjoying all this content we're putting out. We have decided to do the Look Inside series different this year, where we are doing mini episodes for each team instead of having you guys tune in for full episodes. So there is a ton on our YouTube channel for you guys to catch up on. Josh, let's talk about this Arizona starting lineup. These are the Underdog ADP as of 6/26 when we are recording this episode. We use Underdog because right now in June, it is the most accurate average draft position data that you're going to get, because these is coming from folks who have skin in the game. Even if it's a $5 tournament, you're going to draft it more realistically than you would do some mock drafts. At quarterback, we got Kyler Murray, as you alluded to earlier, Josh. He is the QB8 off the board right now in fantasy football. RB1 is going to be James Conner. He's the RB22. RB2 is last year's rookie Trey Benson. He's the RB44 in drafts. RB3 is Amari DiMercado. He's the RB97. So not getting drafted a lot there as the third running back in this team. As we move over to the wide receivers, another rookie from last year, Marvin Harrison Jr., the wide receiver 14 off the board. Michael Wilson's the wide receiver 2 on this team. He's falling all the way to wide receiver 75. Greg Dortch at wide receiver 3. He is the wide receiver 122 off the board. Zay Jones, even less relevant. He's the 4 for this team, the 159 in fantasy football. And then at tight end 1 is Trey McBride. He's the tight end 2, just behind Brock Bowers in fantasy drafts. So, Josh, before we get into this, I do want to point out to folks, when this episode drops, there will also be an article on our website talking about Marvin Harrison Jr., written by the great Kelly Singh. But Josh, looking at this Cardinals offense, what's your overall takeaways?
This offense is boring and has no creativity. That's my big hit.
And we're going to move on. That's the end of the episode.
Yeah, right.
No.
That's pretty much all you need to know. No, Drew Petzing came over from Cleveland a couple of years ago. So this is it's very similar. It derives from the Kevin Stefanski offense that he's typically run in Cleveland that they will likely get back to this year in 2025. It's going to revolve around playing good defense, running the football down your throat, and featuring 2 target hogs, the wide receiver 1 and the tight end.
Yeah.
Guess who led the team in targets last year?
Wide receiver 1.
And the wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
It's like clockwork. And guess who had a pretty solid season? James Conner, because they ran the football down your throat.
Yeah.
So that is the recipe that this offense lives by. That's why there's such an ADP discrepancy between the wide receiver 1, Marvin Harrison Jr., and the wide receiver 2, Michael Wilson. He really isn't going to matter that much. Really what we want to see from this offense is, 6 to 10 touchdowns for Trey McBride and 10 plus for Marvin Harrison Jr. That's not really what we got last year. Kyler Murray only threw about 21 touchdowns. His career high is only 26. So even if they get 26 touchdowns in this passing offense, you're probably looking at the tight end 1 and a top 10 wide receiver finish for Marvin Harrison Jr. At the end of the day. Everybody wants to point to Marvin Harrison having a bad season last year, 806 touchdowns. Yeah, by comparison to guys like Ladd McConkey and, Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors, sure, he fell short of expectations.
Yeah.
Let's pump the brakes. It's okay when a rookie doesn't have 1,500 yards out of the gate just because his father's a Hall of Famer. Okay. This offense sucks, plain and simple. It's really boring. And with all due respect to Kelly, I love her, and she, talks about the Cardinals all the time. This offense is very boring, but they get the job done. And if they can keep this momentum going between these two guys, between Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride, that's about 45% of the target share between those two guys. Again, those are the 2 biggest cogs in this offense, and those are the ones that you want to draft.
Yeah. I think the thing that really struck me about this offense, and you kind of started to touch on this, Josh, was the discrepancies behind some of the fantasy numbers and the reality type numbers. Trey McBride's touchdown discrepancy is incredible. Only 2 receiving touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. One of them was that fall into the end zone, which was his only touchdown for like half the season. Marvin Harrison has a disappointing year. He scored 8 receiving touchdowns. Like, that's good for a rookie wide receiver. Michael Wilson adds 4 more. Greg Dortch adds 3 more. What I wonder is if you start to see some of the ancillary pieces lose some of their value. I don't want to see Marvin Harrison go down, obviously, and we certainly expect his volume to go up. But like Michael Wilson hasn't earned 4 touchdowns. So maybe he drops to 3. Greg Dortch maybe drops to 2, though Dortch is kind of the home run threat. You don't know that he's going to drop.
They
Elijah
don't use
Higgins
him that way.
Yeah, exactly.
They really don't use him that way.
Elijah Higgins, the backup tight end, scored as many touchdowns on 20 catches as Trey McBride scored on 111 catches. So what I'm hoping we'll see is some of these touchdown numbers course correct. Because I agree, we can't expect a lot more output from Kyler Murray, but maybe we see it get distributed a little bit more. I don't want to say equally. I want to see it get distributed towards the top a little bit better. And then that kind of brings me to the one thing is we talked a lot about this last year. they drafted Trey Benson presumably to replace James Conner, but James Conner doesn't look like he's ready to be replaced. So are we going to see more football out of Trey Benson this year, or is it going to be a situation where they stick with the old guard until one of them gets hurt or
I think that
replaced?
kind of seems like that's the way that it's going to be. I mean, if you just look at the rushing numbers, Kyler Murray's going to have 500 plus rushing yards.
Absolutely.
Like that, you can basically lock that in. So that almost negates really needing to work in a second running back into this offense, because you kind of have a RB2 in the form of your quarterback in Kyler Murray, right? So that alone is taking additional pressure off of the RB1. If you look at all those years in Cleveland, they didn't have a quarterback that really ran that way. So it made sense to work in a Kareem Hunt next to Nick Chubb to keep that offense moving, right?
Yeah.
Kyler's going to have close to 100 carries.
There may be some, maybe this is published, Josh, but you just clicked a whole bunch of locks in place for me. That do rushing quarterbacks just destroy RB2s? Have we been like just wrong about this the whole time?
That might be a fun article to look into.
Yeah, because I'm quickly running through the guys in my head. Lamar Jackson, Justice Hill did not run the ball whatsoever.
Well, and even when you look at past years, right? Like J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, but they didn't have a dominant one, right? Because they decided to split between those two.
Yeah.
But when they got that dominant one in Derrick Henry, where was the RB2?
And clearly Arizona believes that James Conner is that one. So that's that. I know what I'll be doing when we finish these episodes up today. As I mentioned, Josh, Kelly is going to be covering Marvin Harrison. So let's go ahead and get started with you at the very top. And top is a word I'm using liberally here because he's a little guy. Kyler Murray, QB8 off the board. And Josh, before the show, you were a little surprised at that ADP.
Yeah, I mean, the way that the community seems to talk about Kyler Murray, they want nothing to do with him. So when I see that people are drafting him at QB8, I'm like, that doesn't make much sense because you're drafting him to be your starter. So where does this I want nothing to do with Kyler Murray narrative coming from? When I went through and did my projections, he actually stats out as my QB6.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, really, it's your top four guys that rush a lot. You know, Hurts, Lamar, Allen, Jaden Daniels. It's your elite passing option at Joe Burrow. And then that next tier, it's Murray for me. And a lot of it is, and a lot of it is he has such a solid floor when it comes to rushing. Kind of similar to Bo Nix last year.
Yeah.
Bo Nix had a really solid floor rushing, 4 touchdowns, almost 500 yards. Like that puts him in a position to where even if he has 3,500 yards and maybe like 25 touchdowns, that's going to be a top 8 performance. And we saw Nix finish, I think it was QB8, right?
Yeah.
Murray in his healthy seasons, he's pretty much a lock for 3,700 plus yards passing. So you add in a floor of 505 rushing, that's an additional 80 fantasy points just in rushing. Like
he's surprisingly consistent. You're absolutely right.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's you're looking at between, I'd say, 21 and 26 passing touchdowns. And as I talked about with this offense, they're pretty fucking boring. Like you're really not going to get more than that. Yeah. Like I have him statted out at 23 passing touchdowns, and I think I have him at right around 4,000 yards. But again, that's him playing all 17 games, right?
Yeah.
So even if he loses, let's say 200 passing yards and finishes at like 3,800, that's not going to be a make or break in terms of overall fantasy standing. Like that's still probably a top 7 season. And I just like, for all the people that are sitting here saying Kyler's not a fantasy asset, he's not an exciting fantasy asset. But he's going to keep you consistent at the quarterback position to where if you don't take one of those elite level guys, you can still get Kyler in the 8th or 9th round. And you can build out your team. And especially in best ball drafts, if you take the tight end early with McBride and you stack him with Murray later, that's a gimme right there.
I think the issue is with him going off as QB8, you can't wait too much later. You have to be very intentional about that build because you're taking McBride in the second round, and then at QB8 with Murray, you're maybe going the sixth. And we talked about this a lot. Now, this is more of a redraft opinion, but we talked about this a lot, Josh. If you go tight end early, you can't really go quarterback early. So it's an interesting stack.
And that's the thing. I don't. Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, and again, if I do end up taking that tight end early, I'm probably fading the quarterback until way later anyway. But again, I mean, when we did our mock draft for our NPI episode on the draft strategies and stuff, Kyler went stupid late. Let me see if I can pull that up.
Well, yeah, and that's one thing we noticed a lot in that episode was, and we always talk about this in mock drafts, and we always talk about this in industry mock drafts.
He went 11-9.
Yeah. His quarterbacks just tend to fall. So Josh is absolutely right. If you are someone who wants to experiment with stacking in a redraft league, a Trey McBride Kyler stack could work. And to be perfectly honest, you might be able to, if you're a big Cardinals fan, if you're a Kelly Singh follower, you might be able to go McBride, MHJ, and Kyler Murray, because you're talking rounds 2, 3, and then round 11 for your quarterback. So definitely something worth looking into if you believe the Arizona Cardinals are going to be an improved team. Josh, Murray came in as QB.
I don't know if I would go that far, a triple stack in a really boring offense.
Yeah, but exactly. I was going to say,
might be worth it. It's definitely unique. I'll give you that.
Yeah. No one else is going to have it. But yeah, I'm probably, again, we talk about this a lot. I'm probably bringing way too much best ball brain into redraft. And that's something you have to be careful with. And it's something Gator J has recently written an article about. I have to get that edited and take a look at it. But as we transition from best ball into redraft, we got to make sure we don't bring those same principles in. Josh, I was going to say, Murray comes in as my QB 11. You mentioned your initial projections, QB 6. Is he still riding at QB 6 for you just on that rushing upside?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. I wasn't sure about that. So, I guess the issue, and I don't have any of the ADP pulled up to play Would You Rather like Joe. But I guess the issue is with Murray, it's not so much a question of Would You Rather. It's about just waiting, and is he going to provide the value? So right now, Kyler Murray is going off as the 84th pick. So that's what the end of the 7th round for redraft leagues. Josh, I'm not even going to go with the guys ahead of Kyler Murray, but let's talk about some of the guys behind Kyler Murray, because obviously he's your QB 6, but I'm actually going to skip until we get outside of the top 100 picks. And so the 101st pick right now, Josh, is Justin Herbert. So you can get Justin Herbert in the 9th round or take Kyler Murray in the 7th. Who would you rather have in that situation?
I mean, I would rather wait to the 9th round. I do think Justin Herbert's going to run a little bit more this year than last year. I mean, he had his second most rushing yards in a season last year. Granted, it was only 300 and something, but kind of the way that they're talking is that they're more than willing to kind of unleash Herbert as a rushing quarterback, which would be really unique considering he's like 6'6". But I mean, he ended up with, how many rushing yards did I end up with? I gave him 346. No, excuse me. That's not it. 293. Right, I gave him 293 and 3 for rushing. But I mean, I have him at 28 passing touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 3,900 passing yards. I still have him fairly high. He's my QB 11. But there's not a drastic amount of fantasy. He's only 10 fantasy points behind Kyler Murray for me.
And so
I would rather wait the 2 rounds for that.
I hate to put this damning comparison on him, but last year, Josh, we tooted our own horn quite a bit for saying, don't take Anthony Richardson, wait 5 rounds, 10 rounds, and take Jaden Daniels. Josh, am I off my rocker to say don't take Kyler Murray, wait 3 rounds and take Justin Fields, who's going off the board as the 105th pick? He's obviously not going to throw for the numbers that Murray's putting up, but he's going to put up way better rushing numbers.
Well, and I think that's the big difference, because Jaden Daniels, when you're comparing this to last year, Jaden Daniels knows how to throw the football. And so that was the whole thing, is you were getting the rushing upside that Anthony Richardson, a fully healthy Anthony Richardson, could provide, but from somebody that actually knows how to throw the football.
Yeah.
And that to me is the big difference when you're looking at Kyler Murray to Justin Fields.
Yeah,
Fields isn't throwing for 3,000 yards.
Exactly.
He's not throwing for 25 touchdowns. Could he rush for 1,000 yards? Sure, absolutely. But when he rushed for 1,000 yards, his leading rusher only had like 800 yards.
Yeah.
Breece Hall is going to rush for 1,300 yards. You're not getting 1,000 out of Justin Fields. You might get 700, maybe 800, but you still need to have that 3,000, 31, 3,200 floor to get him that high, because he's not going to throw for 20 plus touchdowns.
Yeah, Murray's in that dead zone for me. So right now, I didn't mention I would take Herbert. I would take Fields. The last one I want to ask you about, Josh, is a guy who I think could easily put up the exact same numbers as Kyler Murray, passing and rushing, and you can get him 3 full rounds later, and that is Drake May. He is going off right now as the QB 18, the 119th overall pick, the last pick basically of the 10th round in a 12-team draft. Drake May or Kyler Murray, Josh?
It's Murray for me, and I think the biggest reason is because let me ask you, would you trust Drake May to be your starter in redraft? And that to me is the biggest question.
Yeah. No,
because the way that I approach
Fields.
Yeah, because the way that I approach Drake May is the same way that I approach guys like, Bryce Young, even Justin Fields to a degree, Cam Ward, right? Guys that I think can do well, but we haven't actually seen it over a full season, right? So these are the guys that if I end up waiting at quarterback, like if I end up, waiting at quarterback and like in our mock draft where Kyler ends up going at, the 11-9, right?
Yeah.
I'll say, all right, I'll take Murray because I know that if I put him as my starter, I'm not really going to be that disappointed. Like he'll give me some good weeks. He'll help me win games, but he's not going to put me over the top, right? He's that consistent starting quarterback. But someone like Drake May could be that, hey, this guy's going to light the world on fire if everything comes to fruition, right? Because he has that rushing floor. We know he can throw the football. He's got a good arm. It's just a matter of how do the weapons around him develop, right? So then I would double down and I would maybe take Drake May as that upside pick that maybe ends up being better than Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to wait and take Drake May as my starter because I don't know what the fuck I'm getting from him.
It's actually an interesting point, and I never considered the weapons part of it. With Kyler Murray, you're not just betting on Kyler Murray. You're betting on Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride and a competent backfield. Whereas with Drake May, you can't really make that argument about the weapons on that team yet. That's an interesting point. Speaking of those weapons, Josh, I chose Trey McBride as the person I wanted to talk about, and this was before I even saw that Kelly wasn't talking about Trey McBride, which was very shocking to me that Kelly chose to go with the wide receiver and not her favorite position, the tight end. And Josh, this is something that I want to give you credit for. It was an episode we did for our Wednesday show a few weeks ago where we started talking about Trey McBride versus Brock Bowers. And I am a Brock Bowers fan. I am a draft tight ends early, and Brock Bowers is my tight end one. I want to be very, very clear about that. But when you look at room to grow, you can argue there's not a lot of room for Brock Bowers to grow. 153 targets. I don't know that he's going to beat that. He caught 112 of those balls, 73%. This is Bowers I'm talking about. 1,200 yards just under and 5 touchdowns. Josh, these are the numbers when you give a guy that kind of target volume, that kind of yardage, you kind of expect that. Obviously, touchdowns are wildly varied. He could easily score 10 touchdowns, but you can't go into a season expecting him, certainly not after what we saw last year, expecting him to score 10 touchdowns. I'm not saying it can't happen, but you can expect Trey McBride, Josh, to score a lot more touchdowns. Trey McBride only missed Brock Bowers by 6 targets, and that is with him missing a game. He only missed Brock Bowers by 1 reception by playing 1 less game. 75% catch rate, 1,146 yards, Josh, but only 2 receiving touchdowns. Now, obviously, you're not also expecting 2 rushing touchdowns, but even still, that's 4 total touchdowns. 1 or 2 more touchdowns seems well within McBride's wheelhouse. And as I mentioned, while the ADP is currently showing both of them going in second rounds, in my current best ball drafts, Bowers is a late first, early second round pick. McBride is a late second, early third, sometimes round pick. And I think, Josh, this is going to sound like sacrilege from someone who, like me, who wrote the Brock Bowers is the tight end 1 article last year. I think Trey McBride might be the most interesting fantasy asset at tight end this season and a better draft pick than Brock Bowers, just my opinion.
From week 7 to the end of the season, guess who was the tight end 1 in points per game?
Trey McBride.
Trey McBride.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, because he found all his touchdowns. He found 3 of his 4 touchdowns after that period. So
yep. Yeah, and really that's what, and they're pretty neck and neck in targets, right? Like Bowers had 108, McBride 106. So like the target volumes there, like everything literally lines up. What we want from a tight end, are you the first or second option in your passing tree, right? Both of them are right there.
Absolutely.
And I've said this before about Bowers, for as much as I love him, you're going into a new offense, a new offensive scheme. We don't yet know how Chip Kelly will deploy Brock Bowers. So that adds a little bit of question. Not because there's so much more around him that could dominate targets. Let's be real here. Nobody else is better receiver option than Brock Bowers. But at least there's a sense of, I know exactly Trey McBride's role in Drew Petzing's offense.
Yeah.
Like, you could make the argument that he is the safest of those two. And again, everything lined up last year. McBride, for all intents and purposes, had the better finish of the season. That was basically 2/3 of the year. He had the edge in points per game over Brock Bowers.
Yep. So
for him to go at tight end 2, I think a lot of it is he set a lot of records last year. I think he was 3rd in the NFL in targets. Brock Bowers was, or top 5 or something like that at 153.
For my article, it's the greatest season by a rookie tight end ever and the 3rd greatest season by a tight end ever is what Brock Bowers did last year.
So, I mean, like, there's that sense of, and we did the same thing with Sam Laporta. Everybody anointed Sam Laporta as the tight end 1 last year because of his great rookie season.
This show.
Yeah, I was very down on Laporta. I said because it was all touchdown driven. He wasn't going to score those touchdowns again. He didn't. He finished the tight end 6. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not ready to say that McBride can't be, or not McBride, excuse me, that Bowers can't be a top 2 guy, but you can make the case. Like, if you told me I'm taking McBride as the tight end 1, you're not going to get an argument from me.
If you're auction drafting and you can get McBride $3 cheaper than Brock Bowers,
do it 100%
every single time, Josh. And then this kind of happened in our mock draft, and I'll move on after this, but it also opens up some interesting roster builds. If you're like me and a big believer in Ashton Genty, you don't necessarily want to build an offense around this Raiders offense either. So maybe you don't want Genty and Brock Bowers, but you could go Genty and McBride and have the starts of a fun fantasy draft if you like to draft the way I do.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that just boils down to how many flex spots I have. I mean, there are a lot of leagues where you only have 1 flex spot. I'm not drafting 2 tight ends at that point.
Oh, no, Josh, I'm saying Genty and McBride. And I'm saying you don't want to double stack Raiders. So, like, I was in the situation.
I mean, if you're going to double stack Raiders, that's the 2 that you want. It's the same thing with the Cardinals, right? Like, if you're going to double stack or triple stack, you get the top guys. You get the Murrays, the Connors, the Marvin Harrisons, the McBrides.
Like, but what I'm getting at is, so when I took Genty in the first round, I was like, I kind of hope someone snipes Bowers from me because I don't want to really start with 2 Raiders. And so when Chris took Bowers ahead of me, it was actually a breath of fresh air for me. I'm like, I didn't want to double stack the Raiders, and I like McBride. So it worked out for me.
There you go.
Josh, as we move on to the training camp battle to watch, you kind of hit this one on the head. There's really no training camp battle. Everyone's role is very well defined in this offense, but there is a question to be asked. And our friend Trey Daubert pointed out recently in my rankings that I was too low on Marvin Harrison Jr. because he's expecting a second-year blow-up. And so that's why you have the camp battle to watch being who's going to lead this team in targets, Harrison or McBride? And I think that's a fair question.
So I'll ask you, who do you think ultimately leads? Like, when you did your projections, who did you give the higher target share to?
I lean a lot on history, and so I'm being clouded by Harrison's subpar rookie season. They're not far off, but I have McBride 1 target up per game. So I have McBride at 145 targets. I have Marvin Harrison Jr. at 127.
Okay, I have McBride at 143 and Marvin Harrison at 128. So we're not too far off on that. I gave McBride a 25.7% target share and Marvin Harrison 23.1. Look, that could very easily flip. for me, a lot of it is when you look at the strengths of Marvin Harrison, they're not utilizing him in that way at all. Like,
nope.
They're giving him a big boy route tree, which is great. I love that. That ultimately led to some of the hiccups, so the growing pains, so to speak. McBride, he's heading into year 3, sophomore year last year, already had it kind of a year in that system. So there's a little bit more for McBride to be able to lean on. With Harrison, it was all on the fly, right? So you're going to see some progression here, right? But everybody's talking about how swole he is. That's great. I don't care about that. That's not going to help him run routes better. Yeah. That's like, it was the whole thing with like steroids in baseball, right? It's like that doesn't help your hand-eye coordination. Makes you stronger, sure, but
when you hit the ball,
not going to help you see the ball better to hit it.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing is like it's not going to make him run routes better. It's not going to make him catch the football better. The mantra that I was taught growing up was curls are for girls, right? I don't care how big your fucking arms are. That doesn't matter. Like, does it look good? Sure, it's attractive. It's great. You look thick, you look swole, awesome, cool. But
yes,
like you're not running over linebackers playing an X receiver. You're not. Like, no. I need you to fly down the field. I need you to hit that post and shake the defender and move off of double coverage. That's what I need. Looking like a 240-pound linebacker doesn't help you do that.
Yeah, getting as big as Trey McBride might not be the move when you're trying to be the X. So, I completely agree with that. Like I said, I'm a wait and see. McBride just feels like the more competent target earner, plain and simple. Moving on, Josh, we got the best bets. I'm the only one who wrote one down. I don't know if you have one for us. Okay, perfect. So, sorry. All right, perfect. I'll let you go ahead and get us started.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there wasn't a ton that I really liked.
I didn't like it either.
Setup. Like, I'm just kind of going through and I'm looking. I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, all right. I get plus money on Marvin Harrison Jr. over 1,000 yards. It's plus 115. Like, it's not anything great, but
it's plus money.
It's plus money, so I'll get a few cents on the dollar extra when he hits it. Like,
yeah. I mean, no harm in doubling up your money, plain and simple.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to take a second-year leap. Like, he's not going to leap to 900 yards. It's going to be 1,000 or more. Let's be real.
I agree completely. With me, Josh, I was kind of with you. I didn't see anything moderately interesting about this. I think that Michael Wilson is being overlooked. Michael Wilson has been one of my favorite late-round picks in best ball. He has played decent football, and they have set his over-under at just 525 yards, and that just seemed very low to me. I'm going to see if I can bring him up here, but I think I looked, he was well over that last year. I believe he was at 625 last year. And I think he even eclipsed that his rookie year. I'm struggling to get this up right now while I keep talking here, but that was the thing that jumped out at me. 548 yards last year. And 565 his rookie year. So for them to set his line at 525, I don't quite understand it. His role seems pretty solidified, and he was, again, drafted by this offense. I think we know what we're getting out of this guy. The odds aren't great. It's negative 137. You're not even getting plus money out of it. But again, I'll take bets that seem really easy to me every time, Josh, and him over 525 seems pretty easy.
So I'll pose this question because I kind of want to make you think about this because it's minus 137. So we talk about Kyler being pretty well consistent with what he does year in and year out from a passing perspective. If we expect Marvin Harrison to take a jump in receiving yards, doesn't that probably mean somebody's going down in their receiving totals?
You're absolutely. So I'm looking at my projections. I have him at 544. So I have this.
I have a 506.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to pose this question.
My guess would be the target tree shrinks and we see less Dortch and less Zay Jones. Last year, Dortch had 50 targets, 342 yards. Zay Jones did nothing last year, 84 yards. Yeah. So maybe less Dortch, but you're absolutely right. This may not be as safe as even I'm portraying it to be. And I'll give you guys my rule of thumb is Josh talks me out of my own bet. If something doesn't feel safe, I don't bet negative money on it. And that was why I struggled to find bets for this episode and our next episode. Because like some of it just didn't feel safe. And I won't bet money on negative odds if it doesn't feel safe. It's a great point.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Guys, that's going to wrap up the episode on the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, as Josh put it, a boring offense. We're hoping that their two most important assets stay very valuable for fantasy football. Our next episode is going to be a much less boring offense. We are going to be covering the Cincinnati Bengals as we push through all 32 teams in the Look Inside series. Again, this is just a secondary show. We are still going live every Wednesday night for you guys. We've added a lot of new strategy episodes this year. So go back, look at some of those as you guys start to prep for your NFL or for your fantasy drafts rather. That's going to wrap up the Arizona Cardinals. Next up, the Cincinnati Bengals. Always remember, defense wins championships. Offense wins fantasy football. We will see you on the next Look Inside.